Gentlemen, I know you are busy grinding it out over the last 48 hours. Any surprises in store?
If there were surprises, we wouldn't know about them.
We wouldn't know.
I think the two most likely surprises in order. One is a much bigger Republican year than we're expecting, where they might win governor's races in places like Illinois and Massachusetts and Maryland. The other surprise is for Democrats to do just a little bit better than kind of the current best case, where there actually is a path, not totally unrealistic, where they keep control of the Senate, which is, of course, tonight's big battle.
Let's say the Republicans do win the Senate. Can we expect any changes out of the president? Could there be more gridlock in D.C.?
Well, it's hard to imagine there could be more gridlock than there currently is. I think that's actually beyond the realm of conception. But look, I think the president, the president will certainly not want the last 2 years of his time in office to be completely wasted, and he's not going to just throw away those 2 years. The question is what the attitude of Republicans is going to be if they are in control of the Senate and in control of the House, and whether they want to legislate or whether they want to legislate, whether they want to score political points, and how both of those things factor into how they want to try to set up their party and their presidential candidates for 2016.
Do we get some hint from Ted Cruz? He gave an interview to the Post this weekend saying that he wants a Republican Senate to be more confrontational. Now, of course, he's not really running the Senate if they do indeed take it back, but he seems to have a lot of power in this party.
Well, he does, and that attitude is certainly going to be one that a lot of Republicans coming off a successful midterm would take back in January to the new Congress. And for a lot of Republicans, any deal with President Obama is a bad deal. They don't care what's in it. As long as the president's involved, they're against it. I think it's going to be up to Mitch McConnell, if he's the Senate Republican majority leader, and John Boehner returning as Speaker of the House, to decide what kind of things they want to do. Politics matters. Governing matters, too. And both for the image of the Republican Party, and if these Republican leaders care about actually getting things done, they may have to stand up to the Ted Cruzes of the world if those people say, we don't want any deals with Barack Obama no matter what.
Do you think Republicans will again use the threat of a government shutdown to try to repeal Obamacare?
I can't imagine that the Republicans will do that. I think if there's nothing that came out of the last government shutdown that was good for Republicans. If they end up taking control of the Senate and increasing their margins in the House, which is, as we said, kind of looks like the most likely scenario right now, it was despite the damage that was done politically of the last shutdown. I don't think that there are many Republicans who right now think that the best thing to do either would be to shut down the government or, in fact, even would actually be to repeal Obamacare, although many of them have said that they would like to do that. The bottom line is that right now, though there are a lot of people in the country who don't like Obamacare in principle, many of the things that Obamacare is actually doing are extremely popular. And so Republicans are faced with the difficulty of trying to navigate through a law that's now very quickly becoming embedded in the fabric of the American economy and American life.
So for the most part, are you saying Republicans have gotten over it and they accept Obamacare as part of our lives, part of the system?
They don't, but I think they're trying to figure out a way to repeal it and in part and replace it with something that's more market-oriented while they wait for a Republican president to start, if not totally from scratch, largely from scratch.
Are we going to see at any point, I mean, the Ted Cruz confrontational Republican Party, is that the way of the future, or are we ever going to get over this super partisan politics in Washington?
Well, that's a total we'll see kind of thing. You know, look, there is a faction of Republicans in the House that are extraordinarily confrontational, and as Mark was suggesting, don't want a part of any kind of deal if it involves actually getting the signature of the president on that law. That's a much smaller portion of the Senate. Ted Cruz is kind of an outlier in that regard, and most of the Republicans in the Senate are much closer towards what you call the conservative mainstream. A lot of people like Mitch McConnell, who's going to be leading that caucus if he's the majority leader, and a lot of other Republicans are much more establishmentarian and recognize the fact, I think, that in order to win a national election, something that the Republicans have not done in the popular vote level in 5 out of the last 6, they're going to need to be able to show that they can actually get some things done, and there's going to be a strong pressure from the establishment wing of the party to try to legislate.
We're about 14 months away from the Iowa caucuses. When do you think we're going to start to hear from potential candidates announce that they're running?
Some in December, some in January, some in February. I think you'll see the vast majority of people who plan to run be in by then. But I think some, particularly some of the bigger candidates, may wait until the spring and the summer to sort of see who else runs, and also to avoid being in the spotlight for longer than they have to be, because that comes with press scrutiny and brickbats from potential rivals.
Do you have a thought on who may announce first?
I do, but it's a secret.
John?
All right. John?
I don't have the faintest clue who's going to announce first. There's been some discussion about Chris Christie going early. I can imagine that happening.